What am I doing? Delete this video. Okay, now how do I add another video? Add. Twitch EDD. What the fuck? I think this is still player control.
Okay, so we've got some basic interaction set up in our little game now, so we can make our player move back and forth, and they're stuck within the boundary of that invisible wall that we set up for them. So now what we're going to do is we're going to... Okay, so we've got some basic interaction set up in our little game now, so we can make our player move back and forth, and they're stuck within the boundary of that invisible wall that we set up for them. So now what we're going to do is we're going to help the player feed some of these animals. So we're going to actually give this little piece of food,
Can you
or piece of
do
pizza,
something for
some forward
me?
movement so it can fly across the screen whenever the player throws it. So to do that, we're going to go into our scripts folder, right click, and create
This is
another
super
script,
easy. All I'm doing is
a
adding
C#
forward
script,
momentum to this
and we're going to name this
object.
move forward. Now remember, always make sure you
But
name it
we're
properly
almost
the first time.
there. We are
So the move
almost to
forward
new
script,
material, boys.
and now that we have our script, we're going to drag and drop it onto our piece of pizza, and we'll make sure that it's properly attached, so it's been added as
We
a
have to make
component, which is
prefabs.
great.
I actually have to pay
Now we're
attention to
going
that shit as
to
well.
open up our script. Now in our IDE, we're going to do something very familiar. We're going to create a new variable, and we'll call it a public, so that way we can change it in case we need to later in the editor. Float speed, and we'll just set this to 40 for now.
What is that?
So now what we're going to do is we're going to
Oh
go
my
down to our
god.
update method so that we can move that piece of pizza forward. So we're going to get the transform component of our current object, which is going to be our food. And then we're going to translate it so that we can move it in the direction that we want it to. And then we're going to open parentheses. Now we're going to move it forward
So
in the
actually,
direction
I'm
that it's
gonna add
pointing.
some shit.
And then we're going to make sure that it updates over time instead of updating every single frame.
Can you do something for me?
And then we're going to make
Rich
it move
flex
at the
from me.
speed that we set up in our variable. So now we close that statement
John
and
Boy,
we
is that
save
you or
our
is that
script.
J-Bone?
Now back in Unity, when we press play, we
Did you
should
watch
see this
that
piece of
Vikings
pizza fly
game, bro?
straight
That
through the
shit was
air.
wild.
Ooh, and there it goes. It's just flying all the way in the distance. There that pizza goes. Cool. So, to recap what we just did, so we made a move forward script in our scripts folder. We attached that script to our pizza. And then in our IDE, we made a speed variable to control how fast the pizza flies if we want to make it faster or slower later. And then we wrote a new line of code.
Oh, I didn't even fucking open Unity yet. Goddamn. Neo dang 21. Neo dang. This is good because I'm going to just crack out this project at the end this time. This is what I'm going to add the health bar to. I want to add rotation to the character. So that way, like, instead of shooting the pizza only up, you could shoot it left, right, down, up, all that shit. I want to just crack this project out and then I'll move ahead. Of course, I have to first complete the actual project. I could complete the challenge too, but I did the challenge not too long ago. This one, so I might just skip this challenge and just go to the extra challenges. Okay, save my layout. And all we're doing is creating a script here for a move forward script. I'll probably use this same move forward script for the I gotta get VS Code here now. That shit was way better. Neo Dang 21. I'm just gonna private float this. You know what? I'm gonna public float this because I guarantee you they are probably just gonna use this same script for the actual animals. I don't remember, but that's what we'll do. So I'm just gonna take this transform and just add speed to it with the transform.translate vector 3 dot forward times speed times time dot delta time. That's probably enough. You know? What the fuck? Yeah, infinite. I gotta make an out of bounds. I can get rid of this. You don't get any sack yards, bro. Okay. Oh. There we go. J-Bone, the smart man. Back at it again with the keeping my VODs on YouTube.
All right, so we
All right,
make it
this
to
is
our
very
pizza can fly all the
important.
way off into
This
the
is a
distance. There
very
it goes. Can we
important
chase
one.
it down? Just keeps going on and on forever and ever, all the way till it reaches the ends of the
The
earth.
prefabs.
So we're going
This
to
is what I
stop play
forgot
mode.
about.
Now, if we focus back on our main characters here, I'll just do a top-down view for now. Now, our little piece of pizza has the behavior that we want it to have, and now we need to create something called a prefab so that we can keep reusing it anytime, anywhere, and it will always be the exact same, and it will have
Just
everything
in the
that it should
tree.
be doing.
He's like,
In
it's
order to do
Christmas
that,
time,
we're
niggas.
actually going to create another folder in our assets. Right-click on Assets, create a folder, and we're going to name this Prefabs. Now, what we're going to do is, in our prefabs folder, we're actually going to drag now our food from our hierarchy and drop it into the prefabs folder.
That's all. That's all.
So now what it's asking is
right.
if we would like to create an original or a new variant of this prefab. Now, a prefab is a prefabricated version of the object that you're using. So, for example, because we want to reuse this piece of pizza, we make a prefab so that we can keep reusing the pizza over and over again, and it will always have the move forward script applied to it. Because we changed the size of this pizza, it'll always be this size whenever we bring it from our projects into our project hierarchy. Now, specifically with our original prefab, we're making a brand new prefab versus a prefab variant where, say, we had a bunch of different kinds of pizzas, but they all, are generally a pizza. Then we would start with a pizza, and then maybe one of the variants has pepperonis on it, one of the variants has vegetables on it, so on and so forth. So variants are really useful if you have a basic prefab that you're going to use, but we're just going to make our own prefab right now. So now that you have an original prefab, you can actually see it looks very similar to some of the other assets that we have. So if we take a look at the humans, you can see they all have this blue cube. So that blue cube actually denotes that these are also prefabs too. For our sake, since we made a new prefab, we added it to our prefabs folder. So, in fact, we have this piece of pizza in the scene, and if we press play, you can see that our piece of pizza flies off into the distance, just like it did before. And in fact, we can actually drag our prefabs into our scene, and they'll always have the same characteristics too. So they have that move forward script that actually makes them fly off into the distance. There they go, never to be seen again. So the way that we'll actually make these pieces of pizza spawn is actually from the player itself. So using our player controller, we can actually throw some of these pizzas by ourselves. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to make sure that the player
Add a
always
game
has a reference
object.
to that piece of pizza. So we're actually going to go into our player controller class, and we'll create a new variable. So this will be a public, so that way we can see it and our class can see it. In this case, it'll be
This
a
is
game
how I'm
object,
going to give the player the health bar. This is exactly how I'm going to do
since
it.
instead of a value that we're storing, like a float or an integer, we'll
Actually,
be
no, it's not.
storing
Because what I'm going to
objects
do is I'm going to
themselves.
probably make a health bar script. And then in this
And
health
then we'll
bar
just name
script,
this
it will do
projectile
this.
prefab, so that way we know that it's
It will
prefab that we're
hold.
going to be throwing later.
It's gonna be like a UI object. So instead of like attaching a game object to it, I'm just gonna
Now, if we
attach
save
the UI
and we
to
hop
it,
back
the
into
health bar
Unity,
itself,
now in
and I'm just
Unity,
gonna have it just chilling
when we
above
click
the
on our
moose
player,
or whatever animal.
you'll see that under the player controller script, there's now an empty projectile prefab, and there's no game object attached to it. Now, what you want to make sure you do is drag over your food prefab into that variable. So then that way it always creates a new food prefab from your
And this is
prefabs.
fire.
If you were to take the food that's in your project hierarchy, it would actually constantly be trying to create that piece of food that's already in your scene, and so you can actually break stuff later as you try to create more pieces of pizza. So what you're going to do is you're going to go into your assets, you're going to create a prefabs folder,
Let me
drag your piece
some
of pizza.
for you. I'm hitting a little rich flex for you. I need to create a prefabs for. This is money. This is where it's all gonna start coming together. Man, World Cup is so soon. I I'm like already sad about it because it should just be forever. What the fuck? Now watch how we test. Let me get rid of this shit. Delete that shit. Watch this. Ready? Boom. Money. That's how we check. Oh my god, doggy. Every single time I come to work, he's like, let me do some. He loves the computer screens, doggy. He's like, computer screens are lit. He just like seeing the shit on the screen flying around. He's like, pet me. Okay. Um, alright. Public game object. What was the name of the game object? Did he just name it food? Or did he name it projectile? Projectile, yeah. Justin Gerber, baby. Drake. Drake. So what I just did, what the fuck? Oh my god. I just didn't save my project yesterday, so alright, that was retarded. I'm almost like positive that I did save the project, but it doesn't matter because it doesn't matter actually. Because although I didn't save my project, it's gonna work right away because I saved the script. Although that I fucked up and didn't save the project, I saved the script. So even though, you know, the player didn't have whatever, or the player was a named player and all that bullshit, um, all the work that was done on the script is finished. Oliver's in the tree and Doggy's just like, what the hell? Oh, babe, did you made it so doggy so that they can't fit behind the couch anymore? Oh, yeah, you're right. Can you do something for me? Test for spacebar. This is also very good.
So what we're going to do is we need to figure out a way where whenever the player presses a button, very similar to how they press the left or right arrow keys, they move back and forth. Whenever they press a
These.
button, they will spawn their own pizza because we can't just be magically dragging on pizzas if our player's playing the game. It doesn't really work like that. And if 10 people are playing the game, it's only one of you. Just never going to happen. If we go into our code, now in our IDE, we're actually going to create more logic. So we're going to create another if statement. So if you remember, we used our input manager to actually know when somebody's pressed the left or right key using our get axis. Now, another way that we can actually get input is if we go to our condition and we type in input for our input manager, so that way it knows whenever the player is using a controller or their keyboard, and we press dot. Now, there's all of these functions that we can use, like get button up, get button down, useful if you have a controller, the get axis that we used before to see whenever the axis changes. And specifically,
Yes,
there are
baby.
these series of functions called get key
Oh,
down, get key up. And so these are all related to your
that's
keyboard
part of the
keys.
card.
So if you get key, it gets whenever the key is
Go
pressed.
shower.
Whenever
You
you use get key
stinky
down, it's
butt.
whenever the key is pressed down specifically, and key up is whenever you actually let go of that key, it will do that thing. So in our case, we'll do get key down, so that way it's really instant.
Nicole was talking to me,
He's
so we're
pressed
going back.
the left or right
We're going all the way
player
back.
presses a button, very similar to how they press the left or right arrow keys, they move back and forth. Whenever they press a button, they will spawn their own pizza because we can't just be magically dragging on pizzas if our player's playing the game. It doesn't really work like that, and if 10 people are playing the game, it's only one of you. Just never going to happen. If we go into our code, now in our IDE, we're actually going to create more logic. So we're going to create another if statement. So if you remember, we used our input manager to actually know when somebody's pressed the left or right key using our get axis. Now, another way that we can actually get input is if we go to our condition and we type in input for our input manager, so that way it knows whenever the player is using a controller or their keyboard, and we press dot. Now there's all of these functions that we can use, like get button up, get button down, useful if you have a controller, the get axis that we used before to see whenever the axis changes, and specifically there are these series of functions called get key down, get key up. And so these are all related to your keyboard keys. So if you get key, it gets whenever the key is pressed. Whenever you use get key down, it's whenever the key is pressed down specifically, and key up is whenever you actually let go of that key, it will do that thing. So in our case, we'll do get key down, so that way it's really instant. So whenever the player presses that key once, it'll fire off one of our projectiles. And what we're going to do is we have some different parameters that we can actually put into this method. So we have key code key, not really sure what that means yet, or we have a string name. Now, the problem is, if I want to use the spacebar, I don't really know if the string that I want to use is space or if it's space bar. No, I'm not entirely sure. I haven't really memorized that. So a really easy way that we can do this is something that Unity and C# already do, which is super convenient. So we're actually going to get our key code. Now, key code basically is mapped to any key on your keyboard. You can actually see in the description, it says these directly map to a physical key on the keyboard. Super helpful. So what we'll actually do is we'll type in key code, and then we need a dot so that we can find all of the different keys that are underneath key code.
So bool.
And you can see there's a lot of keys that we can press. There's the backspace, there's backslash, there's the letter D, there's an equal sign. So in my case, I actually just want the space bar. So you can see all the way down at S, there's actually the space key, which is really convenient. So now if we close off this parentheses, that way this is all confined within this input method. And then we're just going to add a comment for now in our if statement using the 2 forward slashes. As a to-do for later, we'll launch a projectile from the player. And then we'll save that. So what you're going to do
is go ham. If input dot get key code. Oh shit, hold on. Dot space. I need to create this. Doesn't instantiate. This is what we're gonna end up doing. Use this if statement to have player shoot projectile. But he's not really going to shoot it. All he's going to do is spawn it. Shoot / spawn, because what's shooting it is the momentum that's coming from my move forward script. So it's all an illusion, you know. It's really have player shoot. The bullets don't actually, you know, the Master Chief doesn't pull the trigger. The BR just, you know, spawns the bullets, and then the bullets already have the momentum going forward. So it's all been an illusion this whole time. Halo, all of it. It's all lies, but it's really good lies. Yeah. See, it says it launch a projectile from players, but really, the launching is going on outside of the player.
So we've made it so that we can get the player input whenever they press the space bar. So we'll remove this comment and we'll actually code how we can launch a projectile from the player. So now, whenever the space key is pressed down, something will happen. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use a new method. So this one's called instantiate. And so what instantiate does is it's another way of saying that we're going to create an object. But specifically, in our case, instantiate is for creating copies of objects that already exist. So, for example, our projectile prefab that we have at the top, we've already created that. So we're not trying to create brand new projectile prefabs. We're actually just trying to create copies of it. And instantiate is what allows you to create a copy of that object. So if we open the parentheses, you see that it's looking for a object to copy. So we're actually going to do the projectile prefab and autocomplete. And we actually need more options. So if we scroll through the different ways that we can do this, so you see here in particular, this line is really useful. So these parameters are asking for a position that the object is going to start at and the rotation that it should be when you create it. So what we're actually going to do is, since we want this to actually spawn on the player's position, we'll just use their transform position to do that. And then, since we already have a rotation set up on the prefab, we don't need to change it at all because it's only going in one direction. So we'll type in projectile, and then we'll get our projectile prefab. We'll get the transform, because that's where our rotation is stored. And then we'll get the rotation.
When so what I want to
And then
do
we close that
eventually with this
statement.
game
And now, when we save, if we
project
go
is I
back
want to
into
make the
Unity,
guy actually turn.
and now when we press the play button,
Like if I turn,
you can see the
if I
piece of
hold
pizza
the left,
flies
I
off
want to
to
make
the
it that he could
distance
go
as it did
anywhere, right?
before.
He doesn't
And
have
if
to
I click on the game screen, you can see I can move my player back and forth. And as I press spacebar,
move.
now I'm creating new pizzas, and those pizzas are flying off into the distance. So, what you're
I'm not gonna. I don't know why the guy would take away his comment. I feel like fuck that projectile prefab. We're going transform dot position and then transform dot rotation. I don't think I need to. I don't do any of that translate shit for this because I'm not changing it. But I could be wrong. Let's see. Oof. Well, that ain't it. Holy hell, I'm gonna crash this shit. What I do? I wonder if it's because I need get key down. Get key down. Will this fix this? Yeah. Get key is apparently like I guess get key is like while it's held down, it's always true, and where that doesn't really make sense though because it's like get key down, like the key's down right now technically, but I guess this is just in the ballpark of get key, and then this is get key up. Double tap. John, you remember the game All Hallows Eve? Back when we fucking. You remember that shit? That shit was where the fucking bread's at. Like animals prefabs. Yeah, turn them.
okay. So we made our piece of food into a prefab, and so now we can just spawn it whenever we want. But now we should make the animals a prefab because they're actually going to be coming down in the opposite direction. So we're going to turn them into prefabs too. Now, before we make all of these animals into a prefab, it's a lot easier if we edit them and make them the way we want it before we turn them into prefabs. So we're just going to turn all these animals around and we're going to turn them 180 degrees. So we can actually just do that in our rotation. So because we're rotating them in the opposite direction, we want to rotate them on the Y to 180. That way they turn back around. Same thing with the fox. And then finally the moose. And so now all of our animals are facing the other direction. Now, we also want our animals to move. Luckily, we've already made that script, and
Yep,
there's no point in
see.
making that script again because it's just going to do the same thing. The animals are just going to move forward in the direction that they're pointing. So we're going to actually add this script onto these animals. Now, an easy way to do that is if we actually select our moose and we shift click down to, in my case, the doe, you can see that all of the components that they share are already here in the inspector versus some of the other components that aren't the same. What we can do is we can actually just click and drag the move forward script onto the inspector, and it'll apply the move forward script onto all three of these animals. Now, if you don't believe me, if I click on the moose, it has a move forward script. If I click on the fox, it also has a move forward script. And if I click on the doe, there's a move forward script as well. Now, we don't want all of these animals running at the same speed, so we're going to fix this just a little bit. I think because the moose is a little bit bigger, we'll make it faster. So that way it's a little bit more difficult for the player to throw the food at it. The fox is a bit smaller, so we'll make it slower. Maybe to like 5. And then the doe, we'll set this one to 10 since it's in the middle. And now, if I position myself behind all these animals, we should see, in both the scene and the game view, all of them running at different speeds. Cool, there they go. Off to the races. And then our piece of pizza, once again, flying off into the distance. So now our animals are moving forward just like our pizza is, which is awesome. So we're now going to go and create all of these animals and turn them into prefabs as well. Now to turn all of these animals into prefabs, what we're going to do is we're going to take our moose, drag it into our prefabs folder, make sure it drops right in there. We're going to make an original prefab. Same thing with our fox. And then with our doe.
You know what? I fucked up here.
Now you can see all of these animals are prefabs. And the cool thing is, even though they all share the move forward script, because the move forward script itself is unique on each object, they're able to have all these different speeds. So the pizza can be at 40, the moose can be at 15, the fox can be at 5, and the doe can be at 10, because each of these is just unique to that individual.
Oh my god. Oh. Oh. I remember the very first time I went to YouTube. Looking up Maple Story shit at that time. Twitch VOD Unity Day 3. We are basic gameplay. This is food fight. I love it. Like I uploaded the other video. I uploaded day 2. Right? Home. Balls. Just one. That's pretty fucking. That's pretty sad. All right. Oh, that's because it's still pending. All right. At least that. Um. Okay. Move forward. Bro, like, what the fuck, bro? Go on. No, I want to make it that it goes on to all of them at once. Like, why, bro? You fucking bitch. They just removed it from all of them. One, two, three. I want move forward to go to all of them, bro. Shit's fucking. Alright. Oh, that pisses me off. Alright, we go. Doe is the smallest. We got 10. We'll go 15. And 25. Nice. Love to see it. What the fuck am I looking for? Almost done with this bowl. Food fight. Oh my god, with this fucking bullshit, bro.
So we've made some really good progress. We've made all of our objects in our scene able to move. So you have that pizza that flies off into the distance. We have the animals that are marching off into the ends of the world. And then we have our player here. And if I go to the game screen, you can move them back and forth. And one of the problems that we have is we have all of these things that are able to march off into eternity. And we can even generate all of these different pizzas. And this is actually going to cause a huge problem for our game later down the line, as we have all of these different objects in our scene that are constantly flying away, constantly being updated. You can even see all of the pieces of pizza flying away. Our animals are still marching along, so they never actually disappear from the game itself. So in order to do that, we actually need to create a way to remove them from our game when we don't actually see them in what the player should see. How we're going to do that is by creating another script to be able to manage that interaction. So we're going to go into our scripts folder and right-click, create a C# script, and we're going to call this script destroy out of bounds. Definitely a very long script, but make sure that it's named properly. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take destroy out of bounds, and we're going to add this script onto our piece of pizza in the scene. And then if we click on the pizza, we just make sure that it's attached. Perfect. Now if we open the destroy out of bounds script, now we're going to use an if statement to check whenever our piece of food flies out of the bounds of what we can see on our game screen, it'll delete that object from the game. So if we use an if statement, and we'll leave the conditions for now, and then we use those curly braces, So we want to get the current object's position. So we'll do the transform to get that, and then get their position. And since everything is happening on the z-axis, we'll get the z of our piece of food. And if our food flies greater than, let's say, 50 for now, there's a really helpful method that we can use in C# called destroy. Now, destroy actually enables us to remove a game object, we can remove components, we can remove assets, and so we'll use destroy to remove the game objects on the screen that are no longer actually within view of our player. In this case, since we're actually calling the object itself, we can just use lowercase g, game object, and this will be the current game object that this script is applied to. So now when we save, if we go into Unity, and let's position our camera a bit better to see where the pizzas disappear. So when we press play, if we watch the pizza, it flies off into the screen, and then it deletes right about there. So we can probably make it a little bit less. So we'll set this to, let's call it 30. And in fact, we're just going to make a variable for this just in case we need it for later. So we'll call it private, since we know just about the size that we need it to be. This will be a float, and this will be our top boundary, so top bound. And then we'll just say 30. And then we'll change this 30 to our top bound. And save. Back in Unity, we can watch the pizza. And when they fly to the top boundary, we can even expand the game scene. Oh, that's weird. I think we broke something. You can still see the pizzas flying off. That's strange. How come that didn't work? Well, remember when we made prefabs? So we created this prefab on this pizza, and we have the destroy out of bounds script. However, adding the script to this object in the scene doesn't actually update all of the prefabs. In order to do that, there's actually a little button over in the top right of our inspector called Overrides. And if we left-click Overrides, you can see that it actually tells you that something's different between this piece of pizza in the scene and our prefab itself. And so the destroy out of bounds script is actually new. So if we apply this, now all of the pizzas that we create when we instantiate them should have that script applied. So one more time. Pizza flies off, disappears. More pizzas, and they all disappear. So, perfect. Now we don't have a million pizzas flying off into the distance.
I'm tired.
So, now what you're going to do to be able to destroy all of these pizzas in the scene.
Pizza, pizza. What's up, bub? What? I can't hear. What'd you say? Doggy's eyes? Yeah, snatch them. I'm in the. I gotta. Yeah. Yeah. 1 second. Where the fuck is it, bro? Why are you opening up not this script, bro? Public. Now we'll do private float. Top bound. If transform dot position x. This is y. Do your dang 21. What the fuck? Oh, I never even put the fucking script on anything. Destroy out of bounds. Boom. What the fuck? Z. Alright, my love. Let's do it. Is this just gonna be the exact
So,
same thing but a lower
we've made it so
bound?
that when a piece of pizza flies off
Oh,
the
no, they're
screen,
using
it
an
gets removed.
ELSIF. I feel like this isn't even valid.
And the same
Why wouldn't you
thing
just
if
break this
we
into
launch a
three
whole bunch of
different-
other pizzas, so they don't just fly off into the distance. However, if we take a look at our animals, they're still able to go all the way off to the ends of the world. So, we're going to fix that really quick. What we're going to do is we're going to apply our
See, I
destroy
feel
out of
like
bounds script
instead
to
of
all of our
doing
animals.
whatever the fuck this is,
So if we click on the first animal and then shift click to highlight all of them, then we can just click and drag
legitimately
our
just
destroy out of
copying
bounds script
exactly
and drop it on. So
this.
now they all have destroy out of bounds applied.
Flipping.
However, destroy out of bounds only really works right now for the pizza whenever it goes to the top boundary. We want it so that when the animals get down to the bottom, they get removed. So in our script, we're going to add another variable. This variable we'll call lower
You're a
bound,
fucking
so it'll be
bot.
very similar, private, float, lower bound, and we'll set this to about -10 just so it's under the player. And now we're going to use a new programming concept called else if. So very similar to if statements, but something that you actually add onto the end of an if
I
statement.
want to just see.
So if I type
something.
else if, and then we do parentheses for
Okay,
whatever
see.
condition we want to happen, and we do curly
I'm
brackets.
gonna have
and we
this
press
guy
enter.
just shut up real quick because I want to see if this will work this way. Oh fuck. Oh fuck. Fuck something up. But they're deleted. See. And I get to take these off. There. So now what I'm gonna do in the next video is I'm going to just create a spawn manager which will randomly spawn all this shit. Once I randomly spawn all everything, then I believe the game basically starts then. I also need to honestly I'm gonna make this mad fire to be honest. This is gonna be really fun. But I'm gonna go to bed. I'm like extremely exhausted for some reason. But I guess I'll switch to this Elphys concept. Else if and then I'm assuming I'm just gonna
So the way you would read this is if this thing happens,
if
then it'll do
this. Oh, can you just else if forever or else if? It's all coming out of bounds. I don't like that. I like this. This looks better to me. Save. Drop. Yes, we deleted all our fucking shit, but it doesn't matter because I could legitimately throw prefabs directly onto the stage and it's gone. Alright. And it's gone. Alright, we're big money. This is boss. Perfect. Completed. One day. Again. Short sessions, but that's just because I keep fucking up my time management, but this is still good and at least I'm touching everything every day. But yeah, day 4 completed. Actually, let's go ahead and take a look at our Oh, this is supposed to say day 3. So going to bed, babe. God damn, I look fucking great in this picture. I ain't even gonna fucking lie. All right. Well, good night, me from the future.